underwear through. Scooby-Doo-Ba-Ba-Ba. That's disgusting. Welcome back to the Ginger Dog Knits podcast. I'm Catherine. I use they, them pronouns. I'm the creative brains behind Ginger Dog Knits, and I'm getting over a cold. So I apologize in advance if there's gross snot noises. I'm going to try and keep it to a minimum. That's what just happened there. Every couple of sentences I have to stop and make sure I can breathe. So bear with me. I tried to film this last weekend, and it didn't happen because I was even sicker than I am now. I couldn't talk. My tonsils were rubbing together. So I was really lucky to get a good evening out of Saturday, and then from there it was just downhill. So I'm almost out of the woods, but I'm still really congested. So I'm just going to put that out there. Full disclosure. I'm really paranoid that this isn't recording. Hold on. Okay, we're good. So before I get started, I want to talk about a couple of housekeeping items. The first is that my dogs keep knocking into the tripod, and Millie specifically likes to boop things with her little nose when she wants stuff. So this little criminal has been just walking up to my tripod and knocking it with her nose because she's curious. So if you're watching on YouTube, I apologize for the wobbling. It's the dogs. They just want to be included. And I can't lock them out because my door doesn't shut all the way. So we're just going to deal with it. I live in an older house, and it is not the nicest house in the world. And of course, she's going to play with her loudest toy right now. I hope you can't hear that super well. This is the time when I'm glad I got a cheap little lapel mic. Millie, must we? Are you for real right now? I don't think she's played with this toy in over a year. I hope you can hear that because it's absurd. This is what you're getting with GDK. Welcome to the shit show. It's on my website, which that's announcement number 2. I have a website now. Very exciting. I've been meaning to set it up for ages. I just haven't gotten around to it. But I finally took the time while I was sick over the weekend to set it up and get it live. So it should be published now. I'm still setting up a newsletter, but there is going to be a newsletter. So hopefully by the time this gets posted, you should be able to go to gingerdognits.com and sign up for my newsletter. Benefits of doing that. Obi just threw something into my knitting bag. I love that for me. Benefits of signing up for a newsletter. You get to hear me talk at you in a different format than this, which is always fun, depending on your perspective, depending on if you're my partner or not, because I talk at them constantly. I kid, I joke. The other benefit to that is that when I release a new pattern, which I am starting to get toward doing much more of, there are going to be some coupon codes involved. So that's always a fun time. Anything new I will send out through that newsletter. I promise I don't send them out unless there's something going on, so I'm not just going to send you random crappy emails. And I think that's pretty much it about that. So if you are not someone who is able to use Ravelry, Millie, just Millie, go, Millie, honey, just go lay down. Okay. I see, we're competing for Mom's attention. That's what this is. Okay. Anyway, if you're someone who can't use Ravelry because of accessibility issues, you can now buy my patterns on my website. I only have one pattern published right now, but I am planning to be releasing the Rivers and Roads Cowl, which I'll talk more about soon. Millie! Okay, leave it. Enough. Millie, I'm gonna take it away. I'm trying to do something. Millie, enough. The Ginger Dog is interrupting the Ginger Dog Knits podcast, and that's not acceptable, ma'am. Okay, good talk. They're very opinionated dogs, and they're very much characters of their own, and I kind of want them to be part of this because Millie is the inspiration behind the name of my kind of knitting space on the internet, and originally it was just kind of intended to be a cool username, and now it's turned into this great thing, and she's such a part of it, and now Obi kind of, when we adopted him, he kind of got wrapped up along with it, so I do want them to be able to, make appearances and things like that. But that occasionally means that this happens and they do naughty things while I'm filming. So bear with me. Millie, leave it. Lay down. They're such brats. Anyway, I wanna talk about some finished objects. It's been a really long time. It's been about 2 weeks. I typically wouldn't go that long in between, but again, I was sick, so I have a lot of knitting projects that I've finished over the past little bit while I was sick and stuck in bed. So before I really get into that, I want to talk about what I'm wearing. Millie, go lay down. Go lay down. She does not listen. She's a princess. Millie, eat it. Okay. We're gonna be done with this right now, okay? We're gonna be done with Wiggle Ball. We're gonna be all done. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm wearing the Killer Queen cowl by Mary Annarella. I talked about this in the last episode. This was something that I finished in December, and it's in my handspun and Farmer's Daughter Fibers Odang, which is a Surrey alpaca lace with a silk core. It's like your very typical, like the fluffy type of Surrey, which I really love. Farmer's Daughter Fibers. They're a very pricey brand, but they are one of my favorites. So when I do buy their yarn, it's typically a treat. It's like something that I'll treat myself to once in a while. So I have a little bit of their yarn in my stash that you'll see in the next, hopefully, little chunk of time, because I do want to get to it. But I have some other priority projects that I have to work on. So that's going to all kind of depend on how things go over the next year. So, God, what was this handspun? The handspun is Onina hand-dyed fibers. Millie, get off the desk. Just find a toy and chill out. I'm so sorry I keep scolding my dogs. I'm going to stop apologizing. This is my podcast. You're here because you want to be. Whatever. I'm going to stop doing that. The handspun is Onina hand-dyed fibers, 2 braids from her. Anna's one of my favorite fiber dyers, by the way, and does phenomenal roll ag sets. Anyway, the green ply, it's a 2-ply out of 2 different braids. So the green one is called Undersea, which is a one-of-a-kind colorway, which is a shame because I loved it. And I totally would have wanted more of it, but that's okay. Which it's got a lot of like greeny blues. It looks a lot more green with the Surrey because the Surrey is green, but there are a lot of blues in this yarn as well. And then the other ply is just like a stormy gray, like a light gray, which is called Stormy Seas. So I called it Under Stormy Seas because they both kind of did that. And that lighter gray is 30-70. It's like a 70-30 nylon merino, or merino nylon, I want to say. Yep, 70-30 merino nylon. And the Undersea, the green ply, is Rambouillet. So, that's that. That's what I'm wearing. I was wearing one of my other finished objects, which I took off because I got hot. So I'm just going to segue right into finished objects in that case. These slippers, I had to look up the name of to figure out how to pronounce them because it's in Dutch. They're called cadeautje. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And if you're Dutch, please don't make fun of me for that. I don't speak Dutch. These are by Isolde Teague, and they are a bulky weight slipper with thrums in them, which is, these look really gnarly on the bottom because I've been wearing them nonstop. But thrums basically are little bits of unspun fiber. You'll just rip a piece off of your braid, usually a braid or a bat or whatever, and you'll lay it over your needle while you're knitting. It's kind of hard to see because these are a little bit fuzzed up by now from the friction of my pants, but you'll wrap it around your needle and it'll just kind of lay over a knit stitch like that, and then the tails will create this really nice layer of fluff on the inside, which after you put them on and start wearing, it all felts together. So typically in knitting, felting is a no-no, But with thrums, you want it to felt because it's going to create a really nice insulating layer on the inside of whatever you're making. Thrummed mittens are a pretty historically popular thrummed knit, but I wanted a pair of slippers because my feet have been very cold lately. It has been very chilly in upstate New York, and today is an exception to that rule, but we did get about a foot of snow over the weekend, so I definitely was glad that I had finished these. I finished them on Sunday. I'm filming this on Wednesday. I have no idea when this is going to go up, probably tomorrow or Friday, but these are very warm, and I'm really glad that I made them. The yarn that I used is, shocker, one of my favorite yarns, American U. This is their bulky base, and the colorway is called Glass of Port. It's a really, really pretty, like a soft fuchsia. It's not like a bright fuchsia. It's a little more muted. I wouldn't call it wine red, but I also wouldn't call it fuchsia. It's a really cool color. And the fiber that I used is a braid of BFL from Frabjous Fibers, which is a Vermont-based company. They're also, they're kind of the same clump of fiber company as Wonderland Yarns, if you're familiar with them. That's kind of the fiber offshoot of that company. And the colorway that I got is Cathedral. So it's Cathedral on BFL. And again, as always, all of these links will be in the show notes. If you're listening on audio only, which that is also, that's one of the things that I'm starting to explore a little bit more into, is posting this across audio platforms. This is already available on Spotify, but I'm looking into others. The first episode that I recorded, I didn't realize I was going to go audio only with that. So I'm going to try and do a little more explaining, a little bit more describing, for those of my folks who are listening through audio and not watching on YouTube. And I just bonked my funny bone. That really hurt. Yay, live, laugh, love. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say about the slippers. The only thing that I changed about this pattern is I added a little bit of ribbing at the top, just because I didn't like that the bind off was rolling a little bit, because it's stockinette right up until the bind off. So I just wanted to get rid of that. I put a little, like 5 rows of ribbing on the top, and it worked out great. And they're really comfy, and they're the perfect height, because I don't like super high slippers, but I do want my ankles to be covered. So that was a good knit. It was kind of a spur of the moment, like my toes are cold cast on, and I finished them in like 4 days. So if you're looking for a quick knit, highly recommend. Couple other finished objects. I have a bunch this week. I finished the socks that I was working on last time. So if you watched my first episode, I was working on these since July, actually, but you saw them last time because that was my first episode. I cast these on a family trip to New Orleans. We went with my partner's family. We just rented a house in a surrounding town and just stayed for like a week and a half and saw the sights and walked around the French Quarter, things like that. I wanted to stop at I think it was called the Quarter Stitch, is the yarn store down there. Didn't get a chance, unfortunately. I was the only knitter on the trip, so I got outvoted. But there were lots of beignets, and there were lots of crocodiles, alligators. And we had a really good time. And part of that trip, part of why that was so memorable for me, was because I was knitting the whole time. And when I cast off the pair of socks that I was working on for most of the trip, I cast these on. So these are for my partner, Alex. This is my pattern, the Classic Simple Socks. They're just my vanilla sock pattern. Pretty much all the socks that I make are with this pattern. It's just a really nice, old, reliable. It's a cuff down pattern, although you could certainly reverse engineer it toe up. I've done that before and it works beautifully. Just do a Turkish cast on and keep the stitch counts across everything the same. And the heel is identical. The heel is a German short row heel. So it's completely seamless. You don't have to pick up any stitches, with the exception of one, just to make sure there's not a hole. And it is a very straightforward knit. So if you're new to socks, this is a great beginner pattern. If you're a sock vet and you're looking for something different to try, also highly recommend. I don't see a ton of German short row heels, but I love German short rows. So I use them in my socks. And they look really nice. So I am a huge fan of German short rows. especially in sock heels. So these are all done. The yarn that I used for these is Malabrigo sock in the colorway Candombe, and it's a really cool, I'm not sure how well you can see this with the lighting, but it's got some greens and some blues and purples and browns and then a little bit of chartreuse. And they're for my partner because they love like swamp bog witch colors. So that's exactly what they got, and they're very excited. Alex's favorite thing in the world to get is hand knit socks. So they've been asking for me to finish these forever, and I finally did, and now they get to wear them, and I might be darning them in a few months because I didn't realize until after I had gotten through the first sock that this sock yarn doesn't have any nylon in it. 100% merino. So may have screwed myself a little bit, but we'll see how quickly they need to be mended. We'll see how that goes. Finished object number 3. I have 4. This is also my own pattern. This is the Rivers and Roads Cowl. And it's all done. I have knit 2 of these. This was the second one that I knit. The first one was the sample that I made for the pattern photos. The pattern is originally written for boucle yarn, but I wanted to see how it would knit up in a non-boucle because I have a lot of folks who are interested in knitting the pattern, but not in a boucle yarn because a lot of people have strong feelings about boucle. I'm not going to go into details about what boucle is, but I love boucle. It's loopy, it's fluffy, it's squishy. I really like it. But it is a very different texture. So I finished this, honestly, I think the day after I posted the last podcast episode and I was working on this. It's a brioche cowl. It's knit on the bias and seamed at the back. So it goes right down the back, and then this little point in the front, you wear it exactly like the one that I'm wearing right now if you're watching on YouTube. It's got this neat little I-cord edge at the top, and on this edge with an I-cord bind off, and you can do a lot with this pattern. It is really versatile. One of my test knitters just finished theirs the other day and is immediately casting on another one, so it is addictive, and I've been trying to resist the urge to cast on a third one because I don't need another one, but they're really fun to knit. Maybe I'll make one for my partner or for my sister, but this yarn was a pleasure to work with. This is Nerdy Knits yarn in 3 different bases. This is from their Legend of Zelda collection, and Grace is a phenomenally talented dyer. If you're not familiar with Grace's work, you should go follow her at Nerdy Knits on Instagram, and I want to say it's nerdyknitsyarn.com. Highly recommend. Big fan. The variegated yarn is the colorway Zelda, which is inspired by The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, one of my all-time favorite games of the past year. Shocker. I think it's maybe one of everyone's favorite. And then the really nice teal. It's not really quite a teal. It's a little bit bottle green in some lighting, which I think is really cool. This is the colorway Zonai, which if you've played Tears of the Kingdom, you know this is almost a complete dead ringer for that color. In sport and mohair lace held together, and it turned out really beautifully. This was my first time using mohair in something that was going to go against my neck, and I was anxious about it because I have pretty sensitive skin and I'm pretty sensitive to tactile sensation. I'm autistic, and sensory overload is one of the biggest places that it shows up for me. And it does turn out that mohair is kind of itchy for me, which is really unfortunate because I love this cowl. And I definitely still wear it, but this is going to have to be one that goes on the way out under a coat and comes off when you walk through the door. It's kind of an outside knit, which is fine. There's a time and a place for those in my life, but I can't wear it for that long or else it starts to itch. So I'm going to be mindful of that when I want fluff in the future to go with suri, because the suri is completely fine on my neck. Suri is way softer than mohair, and it gives that almost identical effect. It's a little bit less of a light halo. It's a little bit more, the fibers are a little longer, they're a little loopier sometimes, and mohair just has a little bit of a finer halo, but it is what it is. And there's still absolutely a time and a place for mohair in my knitting. I'm going to have to be careful about where I use it. So that was my lesson with that project. I'm a little sad about it, but still wearable, still gorgeous. And it was a fun knit. So that's kind of that for that project. I do have one other finished object, but I'm not going to share it because I don't have it. If you watched my first episode, you know that I was knitting a blanket for my grandfather, who is in a nursing home. He has dementia, and he's just the loveliest man. And I went to he's in the same nursing home that also houses the hospice that my grandmother was in when she passed. And when I was there visiting her, I got to also see him, which was really nice because I don't live in my hometown anymore. And he told me he wanted a purple blanket. So I made him a purple blanket, and he remembered me. My mom dropped it off for him with a photo of us when I was a kid, and he completely remembered who I was, and he loved it. And she sent me a picture of him all cuddled up in it, which was adorable. So I'm really glad that I got to do that. One of the reasons that I wanted to make him and my grandmother, who I'll talk about that in a minute, a blanket is because when my grandma, my dad's mom, my grandma, we called her Grandma Bomber because when she was younger, she was a softball player. And they called her the Bronx Bomber because that was kind of like a team inside joke. And so my dad and his brother, when they were younger, called her Mommer Bomber. And then it kind of turned into Grandma Bomber when I was born and became her first grandkid. So essentially, I had planned to make her a shawl, and I bought yarn to make her a shawl when she learned that her cancer diagnosis was terminal. Because I said, she's going off the chemo, she's going to be cold and miserable, and I want her to at least have something to keep her warm. And when she was told that she wasn't going to survive, we were told that she had about 6 months. And it was pretty evident that, we thought we were going to have a lot more time than we did. And we did not. It ended up being, I think, less than 2 months from when we learned that she had very little time left until she did pass. So I never got to it. And that was one of my biggest regrets. So I didn't want to repeat that with my 2 living grandparents. So I gave my grandpa his blanket, and now I'm making one for my grandma. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. They're identical blankets. They're just in different colors. And I made them in my Grandma Bomber's yarn. So that's going to be about the next year or 2 of my life is knitting up her yarn stash because she left it for me. And I got rid of a lot. So I still have a lot to work through. And then eventually, once I've done that, I'll knit the shawl that I planned to make her. But I'm not ready to do that, quite frankly. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where that stands right now. But he did love the blanket. If you do want to look at it, there's a photo on my project page on Ravelry. Or you can just watch episode 1 because I held it up while it was still on the needles. But I don't have it anymore. So I'm really glad that it's getting some love. Because I didn't want it sitting in my project bag any longer. I needed to make sure that... Ooh, I didn't mean to bonk my mic. Sorry, I'm really bad at that. I wanted to make sure that my grandpa actually got to use it in, however much time we have left with him. And because his dementia is progressing pretty rapidly across time, I want to make sure that he got it while he could still kind of remember who I am. So, and he did, and I was really happy about that. So I'm glad I got to do that for him. But that's it for my finished projects, which is really great. I don't have a whole lot else to talk about that's finished, which is really exciting. And that's good news because I had a lot of really old works in progress going. So I no longer have those hanging over my head, which is a really, really big deal. I have some works in progress that I've cast on. And I also have a spinning update because I've been doing the 100 Days of Spindle Spinning Challenge. I guess I'll talk about that now. Get that out of the way. I'm still spinning what I was working on when I filmed the last episode, although I've spun a lot more. I'm spinning these Rolags from the Woolly Witch on Etsy, who makes phenomenal Rolags, by the way. If you're a Rolag person, you should check them out. These are some of my favorite that I've ever spun. They're so, so soft and so smooth, and they just want to become yarn. This is going to be probably about a fingering weight. I'm getting a ton of yardage out of these Rollags, and I think it's because I'm spinning it like woolen-ish. There's only so much woolen spinning you can do on a drop spindle, but I'm trying to let as much air in before I let the twist take hold as possible. I am not someone who does a whole ton of woolen spinning. I don't spin woolen on my wheel, but when I spin on a spindle, I'll kind of let some of it happen because I just like how it looks and I like how the yarn feels. So I'm going to see how that turns out. I still have this Rollag and one more to get through. So it's probably a little under an ounce of fiber. And I have no idea how long that's going to take me, but I'm the world's slowest spindle spinner. So that one might be another good while before it's done. But it's been nice to kind of return to the habit, and I haven't spun on a spindle for about a year until this project, so it's been nice. It's been nice. And those Rollags are merino, alpaca, let me look at the label. Merino, alpaca, silk, angelina, bio nylon, and tussa silk. Go on, Obi, you got it. Jump up. Jump up. He's a little, very nervous boy, even when he's jumping onto the bed. So he needs a cheerleader sometimes. Yeah, that's my spinning. I am due for another dose of my ADHD meds. Holy crap. That's something I'm going to have to remember to do when I finish up. Holy Lord, my brain is running away with me. What was I just going to talk about? This is what y'all get when I don't edit things. I refuse to edit this podcast if I can avoid it. It's just not going to happen. You get this or you get nothing is kind of how things have been going lately, energy-wise. So that's my spinning update. I don't have anything on my wheel at the moment. This is Margarita, my spinning wheel. She's an Ashford Kiwi. All reliable right here. I have not used her in a hot minute because I've been out of town. But I have a project that I want to get started on. Probably not until February, honestly, because things are really busy right now at work, but I would like to get that on the wheel at some point. So that'll probably be happening within the next few episodes. But one of my friends' moms has been dying for me to spin her some yarn, so I'm going to do that. Works in progress. Let's talk about works in progress. I have started the thing that most people start when there's nothing else to do, which is a beekeeper's quilt. And I'm about 5-6 years late to this trend. Although I just really like the idea, and I love a big, heavy blanket. And this is going to be like a comforter. And I want an heirloom project that I don't have to think about for like 5-10 years. So I want to just have these hexie puffs. I will link to this pattern if for some reason you live under a rock and don't know what it is. But a beekeeper's quilt is basically these little hexagonal, called hexie puffs. You knit them out of your scraps and then you stitch them all together. So I have a whole bunch of these that I've made out of various scrap yarns that I have laying around. And this is my little hexie puff basket. So that is how far I've come. These are all stuffed. Ooh, that air freshener, man. It's really annoying. So, beekeeper's quilt is happening, but probably won't be an actual quilt for a hot minute. So I'm just going to acknowledge that I've started this as a long-term project. Probably won't talk about it again for a good long while because that's just going to be my sitting in bed project kind of deal. So that's beekeeper's quilt. I also started a new pair of socks for myself. My sister got me this yarn bowl for Christmas, and this is kind of it's a combo of my hexie puff bowl and my sock bowl and it just sits right next to my bed. So I can knit on something while I'm watching TV. This is, again, my classic simple socks pattern, as per usual. And the yarn the purple is Teeny Button Soft Sock in Sophie, which is one of the Anastasia colorways from a couple years ago. And the rainbow one is Nerdy Knits Sock in Prismatic Shard, because I love Stardew Valley. It's one of my all-time favorite games. So I wanted to make some Stardew socks. And speaking of Stardew socks, yes, I do know about the Colorworks Stardew socks, and yes, I do have the yarn for them. I just haven't started them. But that's something I would like to do this year. I'm sorry I keep bonking the microphone, guys. I'm gonna try and stop. Woo! I am in a mood today. Holy crap. Other works in progress. The sock is socking. It's, again, kind of just like I have a training for work this afternoon. I'm gonna bring it with me and just sock along. Socks aside, I cast on another Candle Flame Lapghan, which is by Nancy Marchant, and that is the same blanket as the one that I made my grandpa. And I don't have any of it to show you because I've literally just cast it on. I think I've knit like a row, so it looks like nothing, but I will show you once I have more of it. It's for my grandma. It's identical to the one my grandpa got. It's going to be a shorter version, just like he got. It's just going to be 4 repeats of the pattern. And I'm using like a heathered, like medium gray and a dusky kind of blue. So no idea when that's going to get done, but I have been working on it. Kind of sick of the pattern after working on my grandpa's, I'm not going to lie. So it feels a little stale, so I'm kind of just letting it sit at the bottom of my project bag until I work up the nerve to start. But the bag that's sitting on top of it in my project bag is a sweater. I have been wanting to cast on a sweater for ages, because it's been a really long time since I knit a sweater. And I love sweater knitting. And I finally did. This is going to be for Alex, for my partner. And this is the Vargo sweater by Sari Nordlund. And I have already knit my dogs matching versions of the sweater. So Obi's looks just like this in these exact colors, and mine is going to look just like Millie's. The dogs are already done. I still have to make mine, but this is going to be Alex's. It's just a round yoke sweater. Two color stranded color work, pretty straightforward. And the yarn that I'm using is like one of the only acrylic yarns I actually like, because it doesn't actually kind of feel like plastic to me. This is Lion Brand Color Theory, which is 100% acrylic, but it feels, man, it almost feels like a cotton silk blend to me. It does not feel like wool at all, but it also doesn't really feel like acrylic. It feels like a cotton silk or something similar. I like this yarn because I can let the dogs outside in their sweaters and everything just wipes right off. It's so nice. So I'm a big fan of this yarn. This is, it's really windy outside and the door doesn't shut all the way. The glass door at the front of the house, and the dogs don't love the noise that it makes because they think someone's intruding. So apologies for that. This, oh man, I don't remember the colorways, do I? This one's called Satellite, and it's like a light gray. This one is, oh, I forget the blue. I forget what the blue is called. But there's also a green that I'm using for mine, which I'll show you when I get to mine. But that one's called Caper. And then mine is, the main color is going to be the gray. So that's the contrast color on Alex's. Yeah, super excited. And I kind of just wanted some color work to keep my hands busy, but I do really love knitting sweaters, and I want to knit more garments that aren't just like a cowl or a shawl. I do a lot of cowl and shawl knitting because it's kind of aimless. Like, you can kind of just go until you're done. And I would love to get more into sweaters because I want more sweaters. So I want to, I'm pretty confident in my sweater knitting abilities, but I do want to learn some more constructions this year. So that's one of my goals, to learn more sweater constructions than the ones I already know, because I tend to just default to a raglan or a round yoke and then be done with it. And I would like to do some other things that aren't that. So that's the Vargo sweater. And I don't have very much of it done, but it's been a really nice meditative project. Um, and I've been kind of puttering away doing like a row or two a day on that. So still working on that. And that's pretty much it for works in progress. Um, Again, this is a longer one this week. I'm hoping that I don't go as long in between podcast episodes next time. And I'm also not going to do Q&A because this has been so long. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them, and I will do so in the next episode. I'll leave the link to the form in the description. Please don't leave your questions in the comments. I won't see them. I do read the comments, but sometimes it takes me a bit to get to them. So the easiest way to submit your question and have me actually answer it is through that Google form. That aside, I think that's just about it. The test knit for the Rivers and Roads cowl is coming to a close within the next few weeks. I have 2 test knitters that are still working on their first one, and one who's working on their second. One of the ones who's still working on their first one is planning a second, which is always exciting to hear. So I always enjoy that, because with accessory test knits that just are one size, sometimes you have a smaller pool. So like I only have 3 test knitters this time, whereas the last test knit I ran, I had at least 10 or 12 people because I had different sizes that I had to have people knit. So it's always nice when you have a smaller test knit to hear that people like it that much that they want to knit it again. So because you don't get as much feedback because there's not as many people knitting it. So that's always nice to hear. And taking a little bit of a slow approach to designing this year. I'm trying to not force it, trying to take inspiration when it hits me and let that motivate me, because again, like designing is something that I do as a hobby. It's not something that I necessarily need or want to make a living out of. So, I have a perfectly lucrative career in education, and I enjoy a lot of that type of work professionally, and I don't see myself not doing it in the near future, if that makes sense. But this is also something I really care about, so I want to make sure I'm giving energy to both. And we'll see where it takes us. How about that? I hope you all take really good care. I will continue to post updates about Rivers and Roads when I can. The tentative release date that I have for Rivers and Roads is February 9th. The only way that's going to change is if my test knitters finish early, but I'm not going to bank on that because I gave them extra time due to the holidays, and I don't want to take that away. So I still want them to continue at their own pace and use the time that they have, use whatever time they need. And if they finish on schedule, we're going to go with February 9th. If they finish early, we'll just release it early, because that's really all I'm waiting for is test knit. So the pattern's ready to go. It's knit, and I just need to do one last cursory edit pass. So we're really looking close, and that date's getting closer by the minute. So I'm really excited to have that released because it's such a fun pattern. If you are interested in knitting a Rivers and Roads cowl and you want to get yarn, you want to get the recommended yarn in the pattern. So the recommended yarn for Rivers and Roads is Explorer Knits and Fibers Boucle DK. And Explorer Knits is a company that does pre-orders. So you can't just buy like an in-stock quantity of this yarn. So their next update is on January 28th if you want to get yarn for this project, and Boucle DK is going to be one of the bases offered. If you want to purchase your yarn for this pattern and have it ready to cast on, you should buy 1 skein of Boucle DK in both colors. So 2 skeins total, 1 in each color. I will say that there are some people who might have issues with yarn and playing yarn chicken, because the pattern is designed to use the entire skein. So if you are someone who is deathly terrified of yarn chicken, you can always get 2 skeins just to be safe. That's not an option everyone has, because again, this is expensive yarn. Indie dyed yarn is phenomenal, and I do prefer to use it when I can, but I do also want to recognize that it's not an accessible price point for everybody. So if this is the yarn that you want to use, I would recommend purchasing through this update, because this might be the last time we see it for a couple months. So that's the quantity that you're going to need, and I'll make sure to post that on Instagram just as a reminder if you're going to shop their monochrome update. Again, that's happening on January 28th. You're welcome, Allie. And we will go from there. I hope folks really enjoy this pattern because this was one that I'm very excited about. I think this is the best thing I've ever designed, honestly. This is my favorite pattern I've ever designed. So I'm excited for it to be in your hands, and I'm excited to see what y'all do with it. So I think that's it for this week. I'm going to bounce, and I will see y'all on Instagram. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletter as well. That's at gingerdognits.com. There's also a link tree in my Instagram bio. If you would like to browse all of my socials, follow me on Ravelry. And if I don't hear from you, I will see you next time. Take care.